Welcome to Business Today TV. Today, we are going to talk about the Indian smartphone market, which has witnessed a year over year decline of 10% in the first half of 2023. But many brands like Apple, POCO, and OnePlus are still outperforming in their respective segments. To shed some light on this, we have Mr. Navkendar Singh, AVP Devices Research from IDC, to explain what's impacting the industry. So, Mr. Singh, what is the current state of the Indian smartphone market? And will it be right to say that the tech winter has also reached the smartphone sales in India?
Thank you, Danny, and thank you for bringing me on the show. It's an interesting question, and it's important to give a context that just to step back that India has about 1.1 billion or 110 crore telco users. Out of that, we only have out of a population of 1.4 billion. We have only 60 to 63 crore smartphone users. So we still the penetration is less than 50% for India market. Obviously, there'll be children and some of the people will always bottom of the pyramid who will not use a smartphone. They'll always have a use case of a voice. But still, the 50% penetration in 2023 for a country like India is should be a worrying situation. And the market is not growing. Last year, it dropped by 11% in 2022, entire year from 2021. And this year again, as you said, first half, as again we have seen that it's not growing. Although given that the first 2 quarters of the year are always, so to say, leaner quarters, because the real action, about 60%, 65% of the sales for the entire year happens in the 4 5 months, which starts from August and goes on till starts from late July and goes on till the November. This time, Diwali is in November, so we have about 4 5 months. So obviously, second half is very important. But yes, to say we have reached a peak smartphone might be slightly alarming, but we're not very far from it. The organic growth is not happening. We still have about 33, 34 crore feature phone users who are not upgrading soon enough. Their phones last for 3 4 years, which is why JioPhone has launched a phone at that price point of 999. And the whatever growth was happening in 2020 and 21 was induced by pandemic, and now people are replacing it. That also they're not doing soon enough. From replacement cycle about 2 years back was about 1.5 year, 18 months to 22 months. Now it's 2 years plus for a normal smartphone users. So I think it's a cause of concern. The market is not growing, organic growth is not there, and the brands are churning within themselves, the replacement buying. And the second-hand market has gone very big. So whosoever is buying a phone is looking that the phones have grown costlier by about 25 to 30% across the board, right? So that's why they're going to the second-hand market, and that's one of the another reasons that people are not buying new smartphones.
But as you pointed out, a lot of buyers are not moving out of the feature phone segment. But why do you think that's happening? Why are they not upgrading to smartphones? And why
So a
are they
few things.
still?
Yeah, a few things there. I mean, out of that 33, 34 crore feature phone users, more than half of them use a phone which is less than 1100, 1200 rupees, right? So they would have bought a phone which is Samsung Guru series or some HMD Nokia or a Lava or an itel phone. And they use it for about 3 4 years because it lasts. It's only the battery goes on for 2.5 3 days, and that's also one of the things. And the cost of ownership is not very high. So one is that the cheapest smartphone which we have is I think around 4,500 rupees, 4,000, right? So the gap is too high for them to make a jump. They are spending 70 to 100 rupees on their voice only calls for 28 days. You can't expect them to start buy a phone which is 4 times the price and spend double the amount every month on a thing which is less sturdier than their feature phone, which has weaker battery than their feature phone. And more importantly, which is an underappreciated thing, they don't know what to do with the smartphone too much. I mean, they're not the people who are instantly downloading Facebook and Instagram and Snapchat on that, right? So I think that's a gap. Affordability is probably half of the problem, but the other half is total cost of ownership, anxiety of using a phone, ease of use, and the overall experience which I get, which Reliance, I mean, Jio tried with JioPhone Next and others, it's not really flying. So I think it's a more deeper problem which needs to be discussed with different parties of the ecosystem. Government, education has to be there. Somebody has to subsidize that to bring the phone at 2,000 rupees, then start the education anxiety piece, make apps for them which are relevant for them.
Because I just wanted to understand that brands are sort of hitting a ceiling when it comes to smartphone sales in India, right? As we see in the report. But uh, the obvious answer is moving towards the feature phone segment because there is a lot of untapped potential over there. Why is there no movement from the brands in this regard towards the cheaper uh, cheapification of the smartphone? Like, yeah, there are exceptions. There is Geo phone, and there are a couple of cheap smartphones. But as you said, the gap is still pretty high. So, is
Right.
there a possibility of bridging that gap further?
No, there is always a possibility, but somebody has to take a hit. So right now, why brands are not doing it? One, because two things. One, it's tough to sell, and the cost of operations of selling to those consumers in those markets. I mean, Flipkart and Amazon notwithstanding, but those people still want to buy a phone and go to the market and see because it's hard-earned money. So it's, I mean, and first time if they have to experience a smartphone, you have to migrate them from a feature phone. You need to showcase the use cases and everything. So that cost benefit analysis is not probably allowing that. And secondly, I think more importantly, for the past 2 3 years, we've seen that the component cost is not low enough, or it's still high, which is really not allowing these brands to enter those segments. And it's not possible. I mean, case in point, we don't have a 5G phone which is less than 10,000 rupees. And even a 4G phone, it's not profitable to make it below 5,000 rupees, 5,500 rupees. So I think that's a reason. And from a brand's point of view, it's a business, right? It's fair. If I'm getting, I mean, that will be, I'll sell a phone at 2,500, 3,000 rupees. I make lesser money because it's a percentage, margins for me. Then my cost of operations, I have to distribute offline there. I have to distribute through the shops, then my whole chain of logistics and everything else. And many of the brands have consciously taking a call. I mean, Samsung has reduced its presence in the budget segment of less than 10,000 and even the feature phone. So brands are taking conscious call. It's a business for them. That's why it's not happening.
Makes sense. Makes sense. So I wanted to understand how, like, there's a 10% drop, which is quite substantial. What has changed from last year, and why now? Why are we seeing this now?
So basically, I mean, first half of this year saw it drop. One, the cyclically leaner quarters, but also because we have seen that uh, last year brands still had inventory situation under control in the first half. So they were bringing in a lot of new shipments and ready, and there was still some demand in the market, which happened during at least May, June, July kind of months, April, May, June. So bringing in a lot of inventory at that time, and also for the readiness for August, September, October kind of, the festive season and the online sales start happening. So obviously, year on year, we've seen drop. Part of that is because of that, because inventory correction happened in the first quarter and the first 4 5 months of this year. So many of the brands you've seen, Realme and Xiaomi, not doing very well because they were cleaning their inventory and really starting. And now we have seen the launches happening at the budget segment of 12 to 15,000 from them also. They are the important players in less than 20,000 rupees market. So part of the reasons is a lot of inventory has been corrected in the past 4 5 months, and that's why you see a drop there. And part of the reason is that structurally the demand is not coming in. Even across other segment, even the brands who have not dropped the shipments because they were not very big, we have not seen much growth because the volumes are too low, and structurally the demand is not there for the reasons which I told you earlier, that people are keeping their phone for longer now because end of the day, inflationary impact from across, I mean, it's about share of the wallet. Uh, Even if you save for 6 months to 9 months to buy during Diwali season, it's a share of the wallet. Should you do this, or should your per month spending has gone up? So obviously you are able to save lesser. And frankly, hardware these days easily, an Android smartphone hardware as a hardware easily lasts for about 3.5 4 years. Nothing happens to the phone, right? Even battery and everything else. So people are saying, if I can stick with my phone for longer, little more longer, 6 months to 1 year, they're okay with it because anyway, the pace of innovation, you have few cameras, so the batteries are great, the hardware is decent now. The pace of innovation in the normal mass segment is not so great, notwithstanding folds and flips and everything else. So I think all these reasons combined together, we've seen this, and this will continue probably for the second half also.
Okay, as you said that there are inclinationary fears. While that's there, why is the Indian buyer moving towards more expensive smartphones? Like case in point, Apple and
Right.
OnePlus. Like we have seen
Right.
substantial growth for both these brands, and Apple
Right.
has seen growth in leaps and bounds. So why is that
So I,
happening?
yeah, so I think we should. I mean, that's a very valid question, and that part of the market has grown. That part of the market is in 2021. I think it was around only about 4-5% of the whole market was above 50,000, and now it's about 9 to 10%. Right. So it's a valid question why people are buying expensive phones and not the mass phones. And in the answer, we should not look at the smartphone premium market in isolation. We have seen there are enough reports and numbers that the premium categories across the premium segment across categories has done well, right? So in your automobiles, in your watches, in everything, and people are traveling also, so what has happened is, and we have numbers to back this up, that the disparity of the incomes has gone up. Rich are getting richer, poor are getting poorer, and people are not spending too much money in the past 2 years on traveling abroad or traveling even and eating out also. Now they're doing all that, but the income has remained same for most of the people. The segment, which is the mass segment, which is the lower middle class and lower below that, that's under huge stress, which is there. And that's where the share of the wallet has decreased for the phone spending and other stuff. Above that, it's across categories, and that's reflecting on this sales also. It's not that suddenly you have seen iPhone 14 with a new feature which everybody wanted to buy. No, I mean, everybody wants to buy an iPhone. Not everybody can afford one. But Apple is doing well. The timing is right for them. Even Samsung S series has done very well, right? So premium end of the market is doing well, and that's across categories. So what I meant was that it's not the Indian consumer is buying. Indian consumer that's only 9% of the market, 9 to 10%. 90% of the market is not seeing huge growth. 50% of the market is actually declining. So I think below 24,000, below $300 is still about 85% of your market. So that's a concern area.
So all in all, you say it's more concerning than like it shouldn't be a fact of celebrating Apple's growth, or because it's too small to
Absolutely.
consider.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, all credit to Apple and Samsung in the premium segment. Apple's average selling price is about 85,000 rupees. And if they are doing last year, they did about little short of 70 lakh units at 80,000 rupees. It's a huge number. And this year, they should be able to do 85 to 90 lakh numbers. And it's a huge number at that price point. There's no doubt about that. So obviously, people are spending that, but that's only sliver of the market. And that's not reflective of the overall market. The penetration is not, growing, and the mass market is still challenged.
And what do you think about Samsung? Samsung has been one of the more stable options in the top five ranks when it comes to the smartphone market share. But uh, brands like Vivo and Realme are like Vivo, in fact, has even surpassed Samsung, though by a
Yeah.
margin. But should Samsung be worried about these brands now?
No, worried in the sense is Samsung. I mean, all credit to Samsung. For the past 5 years, when Xiaomi was consistently leading for about 5 years over Samsung, even with 1 or 2%, 3% kind of, but Samsung really stood its ground. Samsung took some time to really start focusing on online. And I think now they have got their act together, but that's the only brand which is presence across segments, and consumers are willing to take their option across segments. You want 20-25,000 rupees, you have M series. You have 25-30,000 to 50,000, you have A series. You have 50,000 plus, you have S series. So from a consumer's point of view, from a channel partner's point of view, it's a consideration. In the consideration set, Samsung is still there, and that's why we see that Samsung is doing well. I believe, I mean, in premium segment, that's the only other player. OnePlus has seeded position long back. They have gone into Nord series. They're finding great volumes. They're doing very well in terms of the growth. But they also realize that it's very difficult to fight Samsung in an Android premium space, right? So, and other brands have also realized. So, yes, there is, I mean, we've seen a resurgent Vivo. Vivo is doing very well now. But a resurgent Samsung is a much more worrisome news than resurgent Vivo, because Samsung it's been in India for about quarter a century. It's a lifestyle brand, so to say. We use every product of Samsung at home possible. So I think from only from smartphone point of view, and secondly, Samsung is trying to market the ecosystem kind of play. Their channel play is very big. They're half and half online, offline now. So they've realized the importance of online. I think Samsung will continue doing well. Xiaomi obviously had some issues, but I think they're also cleaning that. So now and that is why we have given the brand view also, because some of the brands within the brands were doing well. And that's why it's important to see that the top five, the big boys did not grow, much, but the 6 to 10, they really grew, all the small, volumes, smaller players.
I'll get back to the branding part of it, but I want to understand that Xiaomi, as you said, has witnessed a dramatic drop in of almost, I think, 40%. And is there any relation of this with the increased scrutiny from the government? And are Chinese smartphone makers in general facing a difficult situation ahead? And is that also playing a part in Xiaomi's drop in sales?
Right. So, yeah, standalone, and it's important to, I think, uh, help your viewers understand that this ranking which you are seeing probably is brand ranking. So if you put Xiaomi and POCO together, they would have been almost a number two, tied with Vivo, right? So Xiaomi in and of itself is not doing badly. There's a Xiaomi Xiaomi branded phones are not doing too great. POCO has done well. It's online only, so they've done really well. POCO has actually grown the most, about 76.5%, right? So POCO in and of itself is doing very well. Both combined together, it would have been number two. But yes, you're right. I think Xiaomi gave enough space for Vivo and Samsung to enter their spaces, and even some of the other brands, Lenovo also, and even brands like Infinix and Techno in the space which they used to be there. Xiaomi, under political scrutiny, the investments can be curtailed. It's a stress all around, on the brand as well, even in the channel. And I think they also realize that their portfolio needs some rearrangement, which is what they are arriving at now with the few launches which happened this week. Now the market is such that obviously when Vivo is doing well, when Samsung is resurgent now, doing very well, it will be very difficult for Xiaomi to keep competing for the number one position, although it's not out of the question as Xiaomi and POCO. But by that measure, if we do Oppo and OnePlus, we combine together, they would have been number one, right? So we should be very careful when we do company, and that's why we've given a brand view. OnePlus is not a legal entity now, separate legal entity. It's a part of Oppo. They are publicly announced. So if you do Xiaomi and POCO together, you have to do OnePlus and Oppo also together. If you do that, they would have been number one, clear number one. So, and that's why we want to highlight the brands which are doing well. But yeah, Xiaomi has seen some struggle. We hopefully from this year onward, they'll be slightly cautious around the product portfolio and the channel play.
And what do you think about the Indian smartphone makers? Lava introduced the Blaze, which was quite impressive, the Blaze lineup. And what do you think? Where, in which direction are the Indian smartphone makers going? And is there any chance for them to grow in the next
Yeah,
half of
it's
20?
yeah, it's a tough one for them. See, if you see the top 10, there is no Indian brand in this, right? So
Yeah, right.
that should tell. I mean, people used to say top five. Yeah, they might be in the beyond top five, but they're not. I mean, this top 10 is about 91% of the market. So Indian brands like Lava and everyone else are in the bottom 8.7% of the market. I think, I mean, every quarter we get the we think about the same thing, that do they have, I mean, if brands like Infinix and Techno and POCO can find a place, why shouldn't Lava be able to do that? Now, I have not seen the products. I don't question their product quality. assuming the product quality is same, I think the brand salience, the spends on marketing, the investments in the channel, and I'm not saying the product portfolio, I'm sure that's great because everybody can make a great phone these days. But they should have been able to do something. I don't foresee anytime soon, maybe in the top 9 or 10 some point of time, but it's very difficult because these smaller brands have started doing well now. Techno Infinix from the same company, right? So from Transsion Holding. And they have itel also, which is doing great in the feature phone market. So if 9 and 10 from the same company, if POCO and Xiaomi from the same company, OnePlus and Oppo from the same company, so only actually, if you see, there are only 5 or 6 companies in this. So it's very tough for when the brands within brands are doing well, it's very tough for, so to say, new entrants or the old entrants to try and make a space. But they should have been able to do that. We have players like Infinix at 3.5% share. That means Lava is less than that, which is not a great thing, right?
Right. And yeah, going back to Apple, Apple will be launching their new phones in September, and a lot of reports are saying that those will be more expensive than what they have right now. So, do you think it will impact the volume in India as well?
No. And I tell you why. One, anybody who will have to buy a new iPhone, they will buy a new iPhone. I think at those price points, it's immune. I mean, 10,000, 15,000 kind of increment. The price laxity can take care of that. So that's not an issue. But more importantly, whenever, and the last 4 months of the year are very important for Apple. Apple does really well from October to December onwards because October, November, when Diwali sales happen, they really do. And anyway, in a year after the launch of the phone, the N-1 standard model really does well during the year. It's almost 50% of Apple's. I mean, last year there is 6.7, almost 50% of those would have come from your iPhone 13 normal, non-Pro model. This year also, we believe iPhone 14 will do really well. It has done really well. And we believe after the launch of 15, there'll be price correction on that across platforms. It'll give really good volumes along with iPhone 13 and others. So I think the increase in the prices will not impact the volumes for for Apple iPhone in India.
Thank you so much, Navkendar, for your insights, and I'm sure our readers will really benefit from it.
Thank you,
And
Danny.
thank you for
Pleasure to
joining
be here.
us today.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
If you like the video, do like, comment, share and subscribe.